Welcome to another episode of The Shift with yours truly, Elena Agar. In this episode, we chat with Rachel Kaufman. She is a former international public health professional turned certified reflexologist, Reiki master, and a coach. In this episode, we talk about the ancient realms of reflexology and Reiki, diving into deep interconnectedness with our physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. We really go through that journey of well-being and holistic living that I'm very much a fan of as of lately. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and I'm starting to be more concerned about longevity and alternative ways to kind of heal myself to just make sure that I'm optimal performance level in all ways, physical, mental, emotional, and so on. So I've been really keen to speak with professionals such as Rachel and also have experienced Reiki treatments and others myself. Maybe it's not even a treatment, but a session, a Reiki session. And it seems that it's picking up more and more in the public eye. And I find it really interesting because as you hear me talk on another episode, I try to take a more natural approach. I try to steer clear of medicine and just medication in general for anything if I can. Obviously, there are some reasons to do it and so on. And I'm by no means a doctor, so do not take my advice, but it's something that worked well for me. So creating kind of alternative ways for me to take care of my overall well-being and being proactive and preventive about my health versus reactive has been a game changer for me. So check it out. I think it's going to be a really interesting episode for you if you're, again, looking for that alternative ways to your health. And if you want to know a little bit more about Reiki, try. Rachel, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very much excited to talk to you and dive into all the topics that we're going to discuss today around health and the things I'm really, really passionate about. So give me a little bit about the background story of your journey, how you transitioned from being an international public health professional to now becoming a certified reflexologist, Reiki master, and life coach.
Okay. Thanks for having me again. Transitions. Let's see. Yeah, talking about big transitions. I started learning Reiki in 2001, and pretty quickly, first you learn it kind of for yourself, self-healing, and then I started seeing clients at various wellness centers. And that whole time I was straddling, I have a master's in public health. I was straddling, my public health job and healing. And at the time I was, single, no kids, like it was easier to just run from one to the other. And at one point, I think I got down to 3 days and then 1 day a week working at my public health job and so it was more than my side hustle. It was like the other side of me. So it was like the left and right brain coming together at the same time, or at least in the day. So I felt complete if I did that. And then, so like I said, I started learning Reiki, and long story short, a couple years ago, I finally stopped working in the corporate world, as we call it. It was a nonprofit, but still kind of the corporate environment, and had become a coach, certified coach, and reflexologist in that space. Imagine I'm straddling that the whole time. And this was during COVID, and basically the universe was like, this is just not working in your corporate jobs. And I listened, and put the fear aside from myself. And now at that point I had a husband and a kid, and went out on my own. So that's where I ended up today. That's the short version.
We're going to dive into all of that in a minute, but tell us, what is Reiki for people who are not familiar?
It is in the kind of Reiki that is practiced in this country, Usui Reiki. It's Japanese origins in Japan, based on, or kind of piggybacking on thousands of years of people channeling energy, and it's a specific type of energy. So the quick version is it's a Japanese energy work. They call it laying on of hands, and so you're hovering the hands over the different, the chakras, and the which is another subject, right? And it's channeling energy from universe. So everything that is alive, plants, animals, people, has vibration, hertz, some people might call it, vibration. And so the practitioner, I say that we're like a lightning rod. So we're channeling that energy, the vibration of the universe, into the person, right? So it's not my energy. So that, again, the quick answer is it's there is no quick answer, but it's a laying on of hands, Japanese energy technique, can help reduce stress, relieve pain, a lot of physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual benefits to receiving it. And also, I would say giving it as well. I always feel good after and during giving a session. So
You know what's interesting is I was a critic for the longest time of this, and just it took me a while to really get into that energy stuff, and I'm still like, I'm kind of on the fence. I think some things are impactful, and I have experience like Reiki, and I think I've mentioned this to you, like I when I go to my massage therapist, she does some kind of energy healing, so whether it's Reiki or kind of alignment of chakras, so like there is something to it. I don't yet know how to define it, but I think, and for people who are listening, are probably like, it just sounds like fluff. And it's like, how are you channeling universe into the body? But there is something to it, because you do feel better. There's something with sound baths, like you do feel better afterwards, for sure. Like there's something there. But I'm curious, in your experience, do people have to be open to it? Because again, like when I was a critic, I don't know if it would have worked on me then. It works on me now because I'm more educated in that space, and I've spent a lot of time studying it and kind of like really trying to find better ways to manage my emotional states and stuff like that. So but I wonder, does it work, like, so does a person have to be open to it, or like do they have to accept it, almost not accept it, but like, you know what I mean, be open to it?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and I have encountered that exact thing. I've had, when I was training in it, I'd work on whoever would let me work on them, and practice. Hey, can I do Reiki on you for 20 minutes? And they went. It was a win-win for them. And I had one friend who said, I don't really. And by then I was more confident about it. And she said, I don't really believe in it, but let's try it. And I said, well, you don't have to believe in it. It's still going to work. And she felt relaxed and grounded afterwards. So, with that, she was not really total believer. And recently I have a few clients who told me before and after, I am a skeptic. I was a skeptic. It's usually I was a skeptic after they get work done. So I guess the short or medium answer is, you don't have to believe in it, but obviously if you're coming to me and paying me for a session, right, there's something that you're believing in. And again, when I was training in it and people were receiving it for free I was practicing, it still worked. So I think the short answer is yes, it works no matter what. It's just varying degrees of, if a person's more open to the energy, I will say that session is deeper, can go deeper. But I also have worked, recently I have a client who I worked on, and she's pretty skeptical, but she was coming to me, right, for a reason. And she went into this kind of, I would say, healing crisis after she was exhausted. And I think there was some deep stuff going on that she wasn't prepared for. And I think it can scare some people away. And so I guess that's a different topic, but it does work no matter what. It's just sometimes you'll get more messages and more benefit from it if you're a little more open.
Yeah. But which makes sense. But I think for many people, it's just such an uncomfortable. Well, many people are just uncomfortable with their own being and themselves in general, right? So, so I think that has something to do with it. But back to 2001, what was it that sparked your curiosity to be like, oh, let me try this Reiki thing? Because it's been a while. So that's been around for centuries, I would assume, that practice, right? Like I'm sure people have been practicing forever. But what has occurred in your life to be like, let me try this?
Yeah, that was interesting. I love getting massages, and we were out west skiing, and I had a massage from some random guy who was kind of had a weird vibe, but I was like, all right, I'm getting a massage. And he said, well, looking back, he was probably just a healer, and I thought he was whatever, but he gave me a massage, and he said beforehand, can I do some Reiki on you? And I'd heard of it. And I said, sure, why not? I had, as usual, probably fallen and hit my head or something. Skiing can be rough. So I had some sort of headache or something. And he said, okay, I'm going to do Reiki on you and massage. And while he was working on me, he was on my head. And I don't know if I had told him about my head injury, but he was working on it, and I felt this heat, and I felt really happy. My emotions, what's the word, like, got better. I felt more joy, and I felt this heat, and afterwards the pain was gone. And so this was on vacation. So I thought, well, maybe it's just, I'm more relaxed because I'm on vacation, but there's something here. I think I want to learn this more. And so I got home back to East Coast, and there's this magazine called Pathways, which is still in circulation, and it, you can advertise. It's for like holistic healers. Nice old fashioned, paper thing you can hold in your hand. And I just I started flipping the pages looking for a Reiki teacher. And I somehow, you get guided to what you need to do. I found this woman who was teaching Reiki in Virginia, and I just called her up, and I started taking classes with her, and that led me down this whole journey. And we're still connected, and she still is teaching me. And it's amazing, just looked through Pathways magazine, followed my intuition, and started taking with her. So
Very
it was
cool. Yeah. And so what is the training and that look like? Like how, like I assume there's a lot of self-work that goes into Reiki, right? Like, because you have to be super aware of your own energy and your own stuff, right?
Yeah, it's as I said earlier, it's you go into Reiki, and I've found this with my students, and with myself, is that you go in, and first thing you're working on, and I'm saying, like, it's ideally, in my experience, should be a couple of years at least of working on your own stuff, right? And the awesome thing about Reiki is you can do it on yourself. So you can do a half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 seconds healing on yourself. And like you said, it's all about healing yourself. And when you have these attunements, they call them, kind of like tuning in the radio frequency, and you tune into the Reiki frequency, because there's lots of types of healing. They all come from the same source or go to the same source. Once you tune into that, then you have healing happening. So the attunements that happen in each Reiki class are healing sessions, very deep. And so things come up to the surface that you need to work on, physical things sometimes. Like I had my skin peeling like a snake after one of the attunements, like shedding my old skin. You have a lot of visions. You start to release fears, and you start to level up spiritually when you take Reiki. So it is all about personal growth, spiritual growth, for sure. And I mean, my opinion is, if someone's teaching a Reiki class and not mentioning that, then they're doing a disservice to themselves and others, because a lot of it is really just about, we have to heal ourselves, as well as help heal other people. Because I'm not saying that I'm completely healed and everything's done and now I work on and I'm all perfect. No, I think you have to admit that we're all works in progress,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, yeah, whatever challenges people experience, I think it's like an ongoing thing. I think it's like with everything, right? Like you're never a finished product, and there's like new areas and experiences in your life that take you to the next level and out of your, you know what I mean? Like new experiences will put you in a different state of mind. And sometimes, I mean, I've just, I go through this, I think, on like monthly basis, and I'm like, oh, I thought I got that part. And then something will happen that's like, takes me out of my comfort zone. I'm like, damn it. Like, I feel like everything that I've done to like prepare myself for this situation didn't work, or
Right.
something. So, but I would assume, like, when you talk about healing, it could be from anxiety, from trauma, from and just health stuff, right? Like in the world where I feel like so many professionals, and you work with those people, like that are just overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, dealing with whatever, trauma they might be going through, challenges they might be experiencing. So what does that look like? Like, give me some examples of what that looks like in a healing journey. Like, is there like a timeline? Is there, you know what I mean? How often should one do it? Does it depend on the type of healing from? What does that matter? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we were saying it's a process, right? So I'm still on my healing journey. And so everyone, when people come to me, they're in different parts of their journey. some people come to me, like I said before, kind of closed off, but just are curious about it. And so the timeline depends on the person. There's some people who come and are in crisis, and I suggest they come once a week or twice a month, because once a month, the sessions build on each other and they're doing their work, and I want people to do the work between sessions. That's why I like to offer tools and suggestions. And when I have my coaching hat on, I can't tell people what to do, but when I don't have it on, I can tell people what to do, right? Or suggest. But the timeline is, it really depends on the person. I have different packages. So 1 session, 3-pack, which is 3 sessions, brings the price down. So I tell people, look, I'm not trying to do a sale, but you definitely need to come back. And if you want to get the 3-pack, or there's a 6-pack, you're already, when you buy that, when you purchase it, you're energetically putting your hat in the ring, or whatever the expression is. Like you're doing the work already by
taking that step.
Taking that step and honoring yourself, and the soul care, which is my new favorite phrase this month. And I have some people who I worked on them years ago, and then they pop up out of the woodwork and, come back. Or people who see me, are super enthusiastic for a couple months, and then they drop off my radar. So, it really depends on the person's journey. I think 1 session in general is not enough. I'm the first session with a new person, I'm getting to know their energy field and what's going on with them, and vice versa. And so kind of a 1-2 punch, like if they come back pretty soon, I can start doing usually the more deeper work. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it's like within, like you said, it's just a process. And I think it's about, and I can see how this could be like a good maintenance thing to do as well. Like from time to time, just like check in, so I don't see it as like a done thing. Like I don't feel like people take like 5 sessions and they're like, oh, we're just
everything's
good.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like I feel like a brand new person. I think it's just like, I think it's part of overall wellness, because it's that emotional, spiritual, physical, right? Mental. So like I feel like it's all connected, and it's I've always been a huge fan of just like Asian healing kind of what's the word I'm looking for, practices. Right. So, and I think it's doing combination of all these things. Again, I've practiced it myself and with my massage therapist, and I see a big impact. Like there is something there for sure. And when you combine those different things, I can see how it can be super powerful. How does reflexology play into all of this?
Just finishing that thought, that Reiki has the Usui Reiki, which is Dr. Usui kind of refound the Reiki energy in the 1920s in Japan, meditating on a mountain. The symbols came at him, and he, so there's a whole philosophy behind it, living philosophy, and that's the Japanese way, right? Everything's very Zen and rules to live by. So I'll just say that there's a whole thing that I, teach students in Reiki 1 is all the philosophy behind it, and not just the doing, it's the being. So it makes it really interesting to learn it. Reflexology also, has the type that I learned is the Ingham method, and this woman Eunice Ingham combined different therapies that she had learned and taking from Chinese, Egyptians who, have been doing reflexology. Like there's hieroglyphs in Egypt of people massaging each other's feet. So
doesn't love them foot massage. I don't know if anybody does not, right?
So in China, they've been, doing that, Egypt. So reflexology, like Reiki, has ancient roots, and so the method that I do, they call it like an art and a science. So the science part is, massaging the foot, like hitting the reflex points, the acupressure points in the feet, the ears, the hands in a certain way, and there's like they call it walking of the thumb. So the doing part, you got to do it right. And then the art part is, knowing where to go. Of course, I use my intuition. There's a sequence to doing the foot, for example, which has the best, most sensitive reflex points. And what it does is stimulate it gets the blood flowing, the nerve energy moving, like the meridians, this similar to acupuncture. And so you basically get an internal, I call it body massage. It impacts improves the vibration and the energy flow of all your organs and glands. So there's different, the tips of the toes is the head and the hands. So it's
I wanted to ask about that. How does that connect? Because I see this, excuse me, I see this all the time when I go to massage therapists, and they have the that picture. It's like like the center of your foot is like your stomach or colon or something like that. So talk to me a little bit more about like what does that actually connect to, and like if something if like a toe hurts, like one of your toes hurt, it's supposed to reflect on something in the body, right? Is that correct?
It depends. Sometimes someone's toe just might hurt because they stubbed. And usually people will tell me like, don't, squeeze that pinky toe. I just stubbed it on the table. So it's the method I do, like I was saying, it's based on zone therapy. So the idea that the zone, so the top of the toes and fingers and the ears is a little bit different, is related to the top of the head. So they've got and I'll use my hands because you don't want to see my there's pituitary gland on the big toes and the finger, and you have the brain reflex. So basically when you're on the top, right? So when you're reflexing those points, you're actually stimulating, there's a pathway, the idea is directly to that point. So if someone has, let's say a common one is sinus congestion, in the spring or something, and if I'm reflexing the toes and the hands here, and this is the kind of the sinuses, people start to, and I've worked on myself too, like you start to literally feel things opening and people can feel energy flowing. The more sensitive, the better, right? For people feel it. People feel energy moving up through their hips, the meridians run through the body. And so basically without needles, my fingers kind of become the needles. And also because the body gets, we talked about stress, the body produces or shoots out more calcium into the blood to try to balance the acidic alkaline balance. If we get too acidic, stress makes us too acidic. Everything's about balance in the body and energetically. So the calcium actually balances the alkaline acidity in the body. And so you'll feel like there's calcium, we call it crunchies. Like you feel little crunchies in the point where if you're reflexing and that person may have congestion, it may hurt. They may feel, so if you're reflexing the sinuses, for example, people will start to feel them open up. They may have to blow their nose. And that happens a lot. Or like you said, in the middle of the feet, and it's zoned, right? So the right side of my body is going to be liver, and whatever,
other organs that are
right. And the left side will be stomach, spleen, kidneys on both sides. So it's basically a map of the body is on the hands, feet, and ears. And then the ears is kind of like circles out. So the inside is the head. It's like you're in a little fetal position, and then you get to here. So I always, and even if I'm not really doing reflexology, I'll usually start working on someone's ears because we hold a lot of tension around there, like
I feel like I want to touch my ears now.
I know, right? So it's a really easy way that people can just like, it feels good, right? And just kind of,
it just feels good.
And there's points, there's acupuncture / pressure points. Like if you just squeeze, can't see my ear, but the top right here, you squeeze there, and there's this point, and it's just like this relaxing point.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Yeah, whoever's watching it,
right? When I work on people,
right now, but
if I squeeze here for a while, sometimes I'll wait until the person's like, and you'll points in that, because I do acupressure also. There are certain points in people's bodies where you just see them like letting go, right? And that's where the real healing can start, because we come in there and in the fight and flight. People usually come in, to my studio here, or if I work on them online, because I do virtual as well, they'll come in the fight and flight mode because they've come from the street. Maybe they couldn't find the place, or they just shopping, or they're rushing in traffic. And first I have to get them sort of out of that fight and flight mode. So this is a great way to just like
Yeah.
Of
So
course,
like
they come in
ground the person almost, right?
exactly.
Hmm. That
Yeah.
sounds really interesting. Yeah, that's no, I've always like seen these charts and like,
Mhm.
they talk about reflexology all the time, but I never really understood. But that's, I mean, that's powerful. I mean, even if somebody's like watching and listen, just like do this to yourself,
Yeah, it works.
yeah, it really does. Yeah,
Right,
that's
because
it.
we don't know how to touch our bodies in a way besides what
Right.
people think to relax ourselves. In just in that, like there's pressure points everywhere, and it's the same with reflex Reiki. We can do this work on ourselves once we learn it, and it's a great tool, for grounding and for resilience. I know, that's a big thing. Is like people
Mm,
just being blown in the wind by the slightest problems. And when we can be more resilient and grounded and just literally just release that stuff through into Mother Earth,
mm-hmm.
just give it to her. That's what I was taught years ago, is like, just give all your stuff to Mother Earth. Like she can take it.
Yeah.
Don't hold it in, because we hold a lot of,
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah.
yeah, there's that, walk with your bare feet and all of that. Like if there's an opportunity and stuff like that, like just keeping your feet solid on the ground. There's a lot of that's another practice that's really, really powerful.
Grounding.
Um, I'm curious, do you see more women interested in this stuff and actually wanting to practice it than men? Or is it like I'm curious, like percentage wise, who do you see most that are like, I just see like men being shut off to these sort of things, like, right? Is that a fair assumption?
I'm laughing. Yeah, I actually now I'm thinking, like, do I have any? I don't think I've had one male Reiki student. Now that I think about it, I've had male clients, much less. I'd say for every 10 clients, maybe one is a guy.
Mm,
And yeah, and I've had no Reiki clients,
mm,
and students. When I was learning, my teacher was teaching her husband too, so like he was in class with us, and that's probably it. But the men that I've worked on, except for one who freaked out when he felt some energy going on in his stomach. They've all loved it, except for one.
that's
Um,
interesting. Yeah, because it's I feel like it's so vulnerable, and men tend to be a little bit less wanting to be vulnerable in that way. So,
right, and sometimes women will this happened recently. Like someone called up and said, my husband really needs Reiki, or needs help, and then I said, great, let's set up a time. And then they said, well, I need to do because I offer a free consult, I need to do the consult with him. I'm like, okay, that the wife carrying the husband to the self-healing. And then it turned out he was in too much crisis, so he didn't come in, so she came in. And
mm,
that's, yeah, I wish society, and at least our society, men were more open to that, so that, and I work with parents, not just parents, but anyone is welcome, like married, not married, kids, no kids, whatever. And some of the parents are men, and I've had really good success with some men. But yeah, it's really just,
mm,
healing is seen as a woman's thing, and that's,
yeah.
in general.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, do you see that the world has become a little bit more open to the idea of these kind of, Southeast Asian practices and like all these kind of things that are coming out from that part of the world? I feel it's a little bit more, I don't know if it's because of social media,
Hmm.
that it's kind of made its way to the West, that it's becoming a little bit more popular. And also you see a lot of prominent people that are practicing these more natural ways of
Right.
managing stress, that it's becoming more mainstream versus what it was before. Since you've been doing it since 2001, so have you seen that shift, or is it just my like bad assumption that this is happening, maybe because I'm in that world? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, being in that world, it's hard to know, but I mean, no, there has been a shift, and I think it's not just me saying that. I've heard a lot of people. There's a lot of opinions about that. How we're in this, I guess, moving to the age of Aquarius, where more people are aware that the Earth really needs, and us really need, like, more healing. And it's not a coincidence that coaching, for example, has become more popular, because coaching is probably more therapeutic and healing sometimes than therapy. So therapy's always been a thing, but now it's cooler to say you have a therapist. Like everyone has a therapist,
Yeah.
and a lot of my clients, my coaching clients, are in therapy as well. So they're complementary. So I'd say that there's more of a acknowledgement or like, oh, it's cool to say that you're doing this or that. And I do find acupuncture is covered under insurance, many insurances, and I don't think enough, and I'm hoping one day Reiki will be, because that would be amazing. But there's definitely, I've noticed since I started practicing that people, if I say I do Reiki, they don't look at me as weird as, when they, it's more, almost everyone's heard of it. They might not know what it is, or they might be skeptical. But I haven't met many people who haven't at least heard of it. Maybe they don't know what it is, but I definitely have noticed it's more mainstream. So when I tell people what I do, usually I get oh, that's really cool, instead of what? What do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm an energy healer and life coach. And recently I haven't gotten, oh, what? People recognize life coach, they hear that word energy healing. And I think people acknowledge, like, there's so much stress in the world now that why not, like, do the self-care,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
Good
people
for
are
all
lonely, huh?
Yeah, it's good for us healers that this is becoming more mainstream. I do feel like it's more of an uphill battle on the East Coast. Like the West Coast, I feel like has been more open to it for many more years. So we kind of, the cool things happen on the West Coast, and then they eventually make their way to the East Coast. That's how it feels, but obviously we need it around here as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's just a lot of need for connection in general, and I think people are lonely, and we know this by numbers. And I think that, and again, I don't know if it's the social media, I don't know if it's just how fast-paced the world is, and that we're, and how disconnected we are one another, especially in the West. There's a big thing, like, we don't take family seriously as other countries do. Like, they take family and relationships a little bit more to heart, versus in the West we're very individualized. So I think it's like a way to have that connection with yourself and try to, you know what I mean. And I think a lot of it is streaming from some kind of the fact that people are so disconnected and alone. And the reason I say this, because in Russia we always joke, like, in Russia we're generally tough people, but we joke, we're like, we don't believe in like anxiety or depression. We don't necessarily, not that we don't believe in it, it's just, we're so used to it, it's just part of life that you just deal with it. And all you do is like it's not a thing to have a therapist, for example, in Russia, because it's like, no, just have a drink and go talk to a girlfriend, or don't go talk to a friend, go get a massage or something, you'll be all right, moving on. So I think it's just like, it's so part of life, because of the circumstances there, and because of how it's been there and growing up there and stuff. So I think it's just different, versus in the West, it's like because everything is so comfortable, and it's a little bit just, and I think a lot of that, and then you take that comfort, the lack of challenge that people have, the lack of understanding what their purpose is, and then the lack of family and relationships, and then that creates a very disconnected, lonely people who are so maybe career focused, that then they need healing and they need stress management, and they need all those things, because I think the fundamentals are missing in a lot of Western countries.
The connection. Yeah, you just described most of my clients. You haven't asked the ideal client, but you've just described it. So that, it's just, there's the disconnection, and that's where tapping into your intuition, which I, instinctively been helping people with, and I worked on myself for many years, and again, work in progress, but that reconnection. So I don't tell people like, oh, I'm connecting you to the higher source. Like, you are reconnecting you. I'm guiding you to reconnect. And there's many ways to do that, through all the meditation, Reiki, and, journaling or whatever, listening to music, hertz, vibration, these, there's a lot of tools, which is why, like, I, just started my group program called Journey into Your Intuition, because I think it's fundamental that everything, like you said, we are very disconnected. And so how do we kind of plug back in? I always think about the Avatar movie, when they have their hair and they have the, they plug the tree of life into the earth, and they're all swaying together. It's still, that movie is crazy, right? I mean, we are unplugged from things. And so I think when I work with people and they get plugged back in and helping them go inward, they feel like more joyful, less stressed. It stays. They might, like even after a few sessions, I have clients who are just looking at everything negatively, and then there's like a switch that flips, and they're seeing things more positively. They're interacting with their spouse in better ways. Like the spouse is still saying the stupid stuff that they didn't like before, but now it doesn't bother them as much. So I think that's really important, is like reconnecting people, helping them be grounded so that they can deal with all the stuff coming at them. So I think that's, my main thrust of things is, helping people reconnect with that. And then they're less lonely, they're less stressed, or they know how to deal with it when things come, and they know that there's more than just the drudgery, for example, of the job, and I got the kids, right? Like people have kids, it's just like morning night's the same. Go to work, then I have to take care of the kids, and the kids want this and the kids want that. They lose themselves, and that individuality that we love in the West, like you said, they're not happy, even though they have this community. Maybe they have a spouse or a partner, or they don't, or they have kids or they don't, but the community is important. So even if it's just a community of, like-minded people on a meetup or a Facebook group, right? All that is important. And we have lost that a little bit in the West, I think. But it's coming back. It's coming back.
It's coming back. And people like you are doing the work as well to bring us back in some ways. So
yeah. And now to meet people, because we've got Zoom, and, in a way, thanks to COVID, there's a lot more openness to people meeting online. I mean, I have friends, they're friends I've never met in the flesh. Like, it's so weird. You haven't met in the flesh,
Yeah.
And then you meet them, you're like, oh, okay, this is the 3D or 4D version of this person.
Yeah.
I already got a sense of who they are. And so there's already that connection, and then you make them more. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Before I ask you my last question, where you mentioned the program, so where can people find you? Where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. I don't know if you'll have it. I think you'll have it
in the show notes. Yeah, I'll have all that. Yeah.
My logo's behind me. Woo! The integration of healing and coaching. So when you go on my website, you'll see that. And so it's integrated healing vibes. So it's www.integratedhealingvibes.com. And on there, you'll find all my, my phone number, my email. My email's also the same, Rachel@integratedhealingvibes. And all of the services I offer, virtual or in person, workshops. Sometimes I do free workshops online or in my studio. This is my studio. That can be found online. And also I have Facebook, Instagram. I think my Instagram is the same, Integrated Healing Vibes with some underscores. So yeah, it's easy to find me. And I do want people to know that if they don't live in the DC area, virtual, I know it sounds weird, but virtual Reiki really works. I've had some really intense sessions. I worked on a friend in Serbia, and things came up that I didn't know about her, and that really, really resonated with her. I worked on people during COVID via Zoom, and they were intense. So, I don't want people to think, oh, well, I can't get this work done because I don't know anybody in my area. So I'll just put a plug in for distance virtual Reiki, because I know it's a weird thing for people, but it works. And I have some testimonials on social media about that.
Nice. So you know what we're going to do for the next time, because I told you maybe we'll do some recording in person. We'll do a session, and then we're going to record, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the experience.
Ooh,
that's going to be our part 2 of this podcast. But everything you mentioned will be in the show notes. The last question I ask all of my guests on the show is, what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
I would say ask themselves what they truly value. What are their core values, and are their actions aligning with that? Because that's usually when that's off kilter, your values here, and you're not honoring them, aligning with them, then everything is off. So just asking themselves, what really is important to me? Where's my passion? And keeping the fear. So what really brings me joy, I would say.
Beautiful.
Answer.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for coming on the show. I've definitely learned something about this. So I've known bits and pieces, but I feel like you've kind of just put it all together for me very nicely. So thank you. I look forward to doing a part 2 with you after our little experience together, and then we'll share that with the world as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Elena.